Hey everybody, it's Dr. Joe and Bumble Bear, and today I'm going to show you general stretches and exercises for the wrist and the hand. And this is the 7th day of my moderate 10-day whole body wellness challenge. Want to find out more about it? Stick around to the end. So let's get started.
Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert.
So for the wrist hand moderate routine, you're going to need a couple pieces of equipment. First, just a rolled up towel to do some twisting with. 2 regular just rubber bands to do some finger exercises, and then a long piece of resistive band. Sometimes they have loops. This one you don't need a loop, but I do sometimes like making a little loop at the bottom as a handle. For these exercises, if you happen to not have resistive band, it's okay. You can do the exercises without the resistive bands, but since this is the moderate routine, if you can progress into using a resistive band, that's going to really be the best option. So let's start off first with just a warm up, and I'll kind of talk more as we go and get things going. So we're going to do a 2-minute warm up. So let's just start with some arm circles, because even though we're doing the wrist and the hand, the whole arm and the shoulder area has a lot to do with that area as well. So doing some forwards, backwards, clockwise, counterclockwise, however you want to call it, but just kind of getting those nice circles, doing some one way and then rotating back the other way. So if you've been following along with the challenges and done the beginner challenge and ready for the moderate challenge, or just starting off with me now, we're going to go with 30 seconds for the exercises and stretches versus how many reps. So in that 30-second period, you can do as much as you comfortably can. So if it's just a couple reps or if it's a lot of reps and you're following along with me. So let's go into the wrist warm up here, just kind of a up and down or flexion extension. So in between each individual one, we'll have a short break, and then between the groups of stretches and exercises, we'll have a long break. So that's just kind of how that's going to work. And again, if you've been following along with me, you know, go at your own pace. Don't feel like you have to keep up with me. If you have to take a little break in between, that's great too. You just do what's most comfortable for you as we go along. And again, if you've been doing these and maybe you've done this one a couple times already, and you know I'm going to be talking a lot, explaining everything and showing you modifications. So if you want to hit that mute button and play your own music, feel free to do that, because you know I'm going to try and give you as many options and modifications as possible. And now just opening and closing the hand. Really spread out those fingers and close them, really just to get it nice and loosened up. You might hear my fingers cracking just a little bit. I think most physical therapists have a little bit of arthritis in their fingers from pushing around on those muscles and everything and getting them going. So you might hear some cracks along the way. So we're going to start off with some resistive stuff. So go ahead and get ready to get your resistive band. We're going to start off with some wrist flexion. You can do these in seated or standing. I'm just going to do them seated. Make sure you anchor your band down with your feet. I like to do both feet anchored just to make sure that everything is nice and steady and doing it how it's supposed to. So going into flexion, we're going to come up this way with the band. So, you know, that flexion movement coming in, and you're just making sure you get enough tension that's comfortable for you. So you see I had a little bit of slack in there, but if that's too much, you can definitely take your feet away and give it a little bit more slack. But if you want a little more resistance, you want to have that band kind of tight the whole time to give you that nice resistance. If you need to put your arm on a table to start off with, you can do that as well. Just for some support, but you don't have to. You can just hold it up kind of like I am. You can even prop it on your knee if you want to, and going up this way into that flexion, nice all the way down. So you really want to try and get that full range of motion if you can. Now, if you're just starting off with the resistive bands and then maybe that's a little too much, or going into that full range of motion maybe is a little painful, then you can either start here and just go to your neutral position, or if going into that extension is a little uncomfortable, you can start in the neutral position and go into that full flexion. So again, make sure you're doing what's comfortable for you with resistive bands. depending on the brand, the different colors are different resistances. So make sure you're starting off with the light band if you haven't been doing resistive bands before, especially with the wrist, finger, hand area. Those are smaller muscles. Doesn't take quite as much to get them going. These are for kind of the elbow as well, because those wrist extensors and flexors go all the way up into the elbow. If you got something like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, those lateral medial epicondylitis, these are great for those as well. So even though we're doing the wrist hand, we're really kind of working that elbow area as well. And so that's nice because you're kind of getting those combo movements. Exercise 1. So again, see, make sure you're anchoring it down so that band doesn't smack you, come loose and smack you. So make sure it's nice and anchored. Again, that's why I kind of like using 2 feet. If you've got shoes on, usually that's a little bit better for the anchoring as well. Again, that nice all the way through range if you can, if it's not painful for you. A little bit of pain is sometimes okay as long as that pain stops as soon as you stop the exercise. So the next one, we're going to go into wrist extension. Now we're just going to turn our hand the other way and go into that extension motion. So again, getting everything nice and anchored. If you need to prop it up on a table or prop it up on your leg, that's sometimes the easiest way to do it, so you don't have to sit at a table if you don't want to. And now this time you're going into that extension, and again going all the way down if you can and get that full range of motion in there. And if you maybe want some resistance but you don't happen to have the resistive bands, you can also use a soup or vegetable can, or some people think I say super vegetable can because it's super, but you can use something like that. Usually those are only about 1 pound at the most, depending on how big the can is if it's super. So you can also just hold on to a small weight as well. But I personally like resistive bands a little bit better. They give you a little bit more tension through the whole movement. So this time I'm going to do them without propping up on the leg. So again, you can just kind of see how it is through there. And again, now those wrist extensors, again, go all the way up into that elbow area. So this is nice to kind of work on if you've got some tightness or weakness in those elbows as well. And then the same with this. If you feel like you can't go all the way through the motion, that's okay. You can start in that neutral position and go up and stay in that neutral position there. Or maybe if that full extension is too much, you can start down in flexion and come up to right there. And so I'm going to take my thumbnail picture right now. You can take it along with me if you want. And then we'll keep on going through, pointing to that those wrist extensor muscles right there, which we're working on. And I would say even if you feel like these are easy in the beginning, I wouldn't increase the resistance until maybe the next day and see how you feel. Because sometimes with resistive bands, while you're doing it, you're like, hey, you know, this feels pretty easy, no problem. But then a couple hours later or that night or the next day, you're kind of like, okay, I can feel that they were worked, so maybe that was what I needed, or maybe a little bit too much. And so then you can do these without the resistive band. So make sure that you're listening to your body, and if it's telling you it's a little too much, then back off of it just a little bit. So next we're going to go into radial deviation, the thumb side of the wrist and the hand. I always say thumbs up is radial. So now you're just going to have your thumb up and you're going into that radial deviation. So kind of everything that we did with the others for modifications, if you need it, are the same. But really kind of try and get in that smooth motion and keep your wrist here in a neutral position. So it's not doing it out here and it's not doing it out here, because that's going to really kind of pinch that area. Try and keep that wrist in a neutral position really for this one, and then going up and down. And same thing over here. And if you want to prop it up on your leg or on a table, this would be the way. Just make sure that your wrist is off of whatever it's propped up on so it can get that full motion in there, going all the way down and then coming all the way up. And you don't have to make the little loop handle like I have. Sometimes it's hard to get these knots to stay. You can just hold it like this if you want to. But if you happen to have maybe some pain, tenderness, or some arthritis, especially in your fingers, I find having the loop is a little bit better because then you don't have to squeeze so hard to hold on to the band. So that's just a little tip there, but I would definitely try and make the loop before you start because sometimes it does is you want to make sure again that knot is tight, so then while you're doing the exercises it doesn't come loose and then kind of snap back at you, because that's not comfortable at all. And then again, same thing with these. If maybe that full motion is just a little bit uncomfortable, you can modify by just starting in that neutral position and coming up. Or if that end range is a little bit uncomfortable, you can start a little further down and then just come into that neutral position. And then hopefully, as you continue to do it and get stronger, you'll be able to go through that full motion with less pain or no pain at all. And again, a little bit of pain is okay through the exercises, as long as the pain stops once you stop the exercise. So as you can imagine, the next one is going to be ulnar deviation. So on this side, a lot of times I feel like it's easier because you can just go out this way to hold the band in this position. And now I'm going to go out towards that ulnar side. So same kind of motion, but now we're just going to hold it up with the band like this and then turn out until that ulnar deviation there. So same thing, you want to keep that wrist in that neutral position. You don't want it to be up, you don't want it to be down, you want it to be kind of straight forward, and then you're just turning that hand out. I'm going to kind of go downward so you can see a little bit that motion going out that way. Again, if you want to hold on to the loop, you can still do that as well. Just give yourself some tension on that other side and you're going out that way. So again, just coming back up instead of trying to anchor it and turn your hand and go the other way, because then that would probably be pretty uncomfortable. So I'm just going to hold. So you can just hold this way. If you wanted to do both at the same time, you could, but I like doing one at a time for some of these because maybe one wrist is a little bit weaker than the other. And so if you're doing them both at the same time, sometimes it's hard to push one harder than the other. So I like kind of separating them out. But once you get the technique down and everything feels good, if you're pressed for time, you can definitely do them both at the same time. So I'll go back to holding the loop this time. So again, you can just kind of see how that works. Holding here and then turning out. If maybe squeezing onto that band is a little uncomfortable on your fingers, because you could even, have your fingers out and do that deviation. Same thing with all the other ones. So if you're, uncomfortable curling your fingers, you can have them out. And I'm still getting that ulnar deviation. I just feel like if I make a fist, sometimes I can get a little bit better motion in there with that. And then I'll use the band over here for this one as well. And then going out. And again, I'll turn this way a little bit so you can see it this way, so that pinky side is coming over to the side. But again, in that neutral position, not down here, not up here, trying to keep that hand, what we call neutral position, is that there's not really a bend there at the wrist. So it's that straight, flat area up on top there. So the next couple ones we're going to do are full stretches. So it's going to be the full 30-second stretches. We're going to start off with a wrist flexor, not wrist flexion, but a wrist flexor stretch, those flexors underneath. So a lot of times people get confused with that because you're going into extension, but you're stretching those flexor muscles. So arms straight out, and just pull your fingers in an upwards position, and you should feel those wrist flexors underneath getting a nice stretch. Now, if this is too much, if you're like, whoo, I'm feeling this a lot, curl your fingers in, and that'll be just a little bit less of a stretch. And I'm turned a little bit so you can see it. Ideally, you want to keep it straight in front of you so you don't twist and get your back irritated. You can also do this against a wall as well. But it's that full 30-second hold for this one. So maybe I'll turn a little bit so you can kind of see the angle on this one. So again, fist, if it's too much, getting that. And if that's not quite enough, open up your hand and get that stretch. And that's because those tendons come all the way down into the fingers. So it makes a difference. If your fingers are up, there's more of a stretch. If they're curled, that's a little bit less of a stretch. Try and keep that arm nice and straight. With the elbow being straight, that gives you that better stretch in there. And I'm feeling that underneath right in there. A lot of times with the stretches, this is a great time to do some nice diaphragmatic breathing. Breathe through the stretch. A lot of times when you breathe in, as you let out, you can get a little bit more of a stretch in there. So just nice deep breath. And as you can see, as I breathe out, I get just a little bit more. And again, once you get the technique down, if you're pressed for time, you can stretch both of them at the same time against a wall. Just kind of place your hands on the wall. But again, I like doing them separately because one might be a little bit tighter than the other, but if you feel comfortable stretching them both at the same time, that saves a little bit of time while you're doing it, getting that nice stretch in there. And again, if that's too much, curl those fingers, but you can still get that stretch in there. So as you can guess, the next one is going to be to stretch the wrist extensors. So we'll be going into a flexion motion this time to get the extensors, which are on the outside there. So that would be something like a lateral epicondylitis or a tendinous elbow. And then that inner one is that golfer's elbow or that medial epicondylitis. So this time you're going down in the motion. And so it's the opposite this time. So if I want more of a stretch, I'm going to curl my fingers in because those muscles come on the outside. So curling them gives me a much better stretch in there. But if that's too much, open up those fingers and then straighten them out, and that'll get you just a little bit less stretch, but still a pretty good stretch in there for that full 30 seconds. And again, keeping that elbow nice and straight, bending in, curl those fingers if you want just a little bit more. And so that little muscle belly up top, that's where those extensors are, and they come all the way down through there. Some people might get a better stretch if they turn it in. You might see some people do that even if you turn it out just a little bit. Just be a little bit aware that some of those positions might be a little bit uncomfortable. So not going into the big stretch if you want to try a couple of those other positions. I feel like this position gives me the best, most comfortable stretch in there. And then shake them out a little bit if you need to in between. And then I'll kind of do it across so you can see a little bit better this time. So fingers down for a little bit less stretch. Fingers in. Ooh, I really feel that stretch through there. And then I'll kind of cross over again so you can see it a little bit better on this side. So now I'll just do fingers down this time. And the same with any kind of stretch. You might not be able to get your hand down as far as I'm getting, it might be just to here before you feel a stretch. So make sure you're not forcing that stretch where there's pain. Stretching should be uncomfortable, tension, but you should be able to easily hold it for 30 seconds without going or feeling like you're gonna cry while you're doing it. So the next one is just going to be some finger strengthening exercises. So something as simple as rubber bands work really great. You can use the bigger resistive bands if you have some, but I find that the smaller rubber bands do a better job because, again, these muscles are small, so you're going to really feel it. Just wrap them around kind of like this, and all you're doing is trying to open as far as you comfortably can and close nice and slow. So just the same thing with the resistive bands. You want to do both controlled out and controlled back in. And you can see a little bit of difference here. I've had some surgeries on both hands. So you want to just make sure, the reason I'm not going all the way open is because I don't want the band to roll all the way down. So, make sure you're just controlling everything while you do it, and then nice and slow back in. And I can really feel that. It's just a rubber band. If you still get a newspaper, sometimes there's rubber bands on newspapers. I don't know how many people get newspapers anymore. My parents do. And then out, and then nice and slow back in. Sometimes they have thick ones on vegetables when you get vegetables from the fresh ones. And so you can probably find some somewhere without having to buy any. So just out, and then nice and slow back in. But like I said, you can use the resistive bands. If you make that little loop, you could put it all the way around your hands. So the next one is just going to be a towel squeeze, or just a little bit of a towel twist. You can kind of do both. But we're going to do both hands with these again, instead of doing both sides. So just wrapping your hands around the rolled up towel, making it thick enough so you get a little push in there, and just squeezing in. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to hold it for about 3 to 5 seconds and then relax. So not squeezing as hard as I can. You can build up to that. But this is almost like some of those isometric exercises that we did in the beginner challenge, where you maybe start off with just 30 to 40%, and then each time you do it, you can kind of increase that percentage. But if you're getting to 100%, then you'd want to start a different exercise. And again, if you want to separate it out, you can do one at a time. But with these, I feel like maybe it's a little bit easier to squeeze with one versus the other. So a little double squeeze in there if you wanted to. And you could also have 2 towels if you want, and then have one in each hand squeezing. But this is pretty easy to do as well, just that squeeze, and then relax. You can bend your elbows too. I have them out just so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but if it's more comfortable to bend your elbows, that's okay to do as well. So now we're going to do some standing exercises back with the band again, and we're just going to do things together because again, it saves time just a little bit, and at the moderate level, hopefully you've gotten some strength in there. So I'm just standing on both, putting my feet about hip shoulder width apart, and we're just going to do a bicep curl. So just keeping those elbows by your side, coming up, and then controlling it nice and slow back down. I'm kind of starting off coming with my palms up towards me. I'll show you you can do like a hammer curl for the second one. But again, so just nice and slow and controlled. Because I have the resistance on both sides, I'm feeling a little bit more resistance because there's more pull on the band with those. So if you need to do one at a time, you can definitely do one at a time, but hopefully by now you're feeling comfortable being able to do them both at the same time. So again, keep those elbows pretty close. Now the thumb's going to be up kind of like a hammer curl style, but make sure that you're controlling that band. Don't let that band control you. Just nice in smooth motion. So you don't want to just go right back down, one, because you're missing out on the exercise, and two, that actually kind of hurt just a little bit. So you don't want to irritate something while you're doing your exercise. That's why it's important to go so nice and controlled with it. So then the next one's just going to be the opposite. We're going to do some tricep either kickouts, or some people call them tricep curls, tricep pushbacks, a couple different motions. So still in the same position. This time I'm going to bring my elbows kind of up, because you're just doing the movement at the elbow. The top part of your arm stays in the same position, and now I'm just kicking back. So it's not kicking the whole arm back. I'm just straightening out the elbows and then coming back in. So kind of getting that kick back motion. I might be moving the top arm just a little bit, but ideally you can see I'm bending a little bit at my hips to be able to get that big pushback. If you feel a little uncomfortable, you can bend your knees a little bit too and do that kick out. And then that takes a little less tension off the resistive band too, so it makes it a little bit easier. So that would be a way to modify it as well. And if you want to make it a little harder with more tension, you can spread your feet out just a little bit. Bend those knees to start off if you want, and then kicking those arms back. Ideally, you want to get those elbows straight at the end, but if you just feel comfortable maybe getting to here right now, that's okay. And then ideally, you want to eventually be able to get it nice and straight, because I can really feel that in my triceps when I straighten those elbows all the way out. So there you have it. Those are my general stretches and exercises for the wrist and the hand. So this was the 7th day of my 10-day whole body wellness challenge at the moderate level. If you're interested in finding out more about the challenge, click on the link in the description below. And if you want to find out more videos with the moderate or the beginner challenge, click on the playlist up there. And remember, be safe, have fun, and I hope you feel better soon.